Hi, I'm Andrew Holzman of Family Tree Counseling Associates. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in Carmel, Indiana. My number is 317-457-8668, or you can reach me at aholzman2 at comcast.net. I work with individuals and couples and families and be happy to talk to you. Thank you. So this video is entitled Toxic Thinking and Alternatives to Toxic Thinking. So before we talk about toxic thinking, which I'd like to get into in a minute, I'd like to talk about self-talk. And self-talk is we all do that in one way or another, whether it's positive or negative. If it's positive, we're thinking things about ourselves that are driving us forward. If it's negative, we might be thinking about things that are that we have lacks in, that we have ways that we are not up to snuff in our own mind. But if it's toxic, if it's a toxic self-talk, then it's pretty far-reaching, pretty unrealistic, and based in some long-held belief about ourselves that probably we grew up with in some way or another that we've believed for a long time. So these unrealistic, toxic, far-reaching thoughts can be very, very global. They can be very big and very destructive to our self-worth. So some of the toxic thoughts I want to mention are I can't do anything right. If I'm open and vulnerable, I will be hurt and no one will love me. I'll be taken advantage of. I'm a horrible person. I'm stupid because I didn't finish school. I have no self-control. Just different ways that we have these really large thoughts about ourselves that just seem pretty immutable, seem very hard to push around in our mind because it seems to be part of our belief system if we are toxically thinking. And so if you're toxically thinking, then the relationship you pick will not be the healthiest relationship because a combination of unrealistic expectations and low self-worth will doom or sabotage that relationship. And what I mean by unrealistic expectations is a lot of the times what I see is someone who has very difficult relationships with their family, have poor, dysfunctional, very dysfunctional families, have a very strong need and a very romantic vision of what a relationship should be. So in some sense, the more dysfunctional your family, the more you need your partner and your relationship in the present to be perfect. And so that's the unrealistic expectation. And if you have unrealistic expectations combined with poor feelings about yourself or low self-worth, then that's going to be a difficult combination to overcome because the unrealistic expectations will fuel lots of anger when things don't go perfectly and when things don't go right. And the low self-worth will make it very difficult for you to be able to trust and feel safe in a relationship, no matter how healthy the relationship can be or might be. So that's very difficult. That low self-esteem, self-worth, and unrealistic expectations are a very toxic combination for safety, trust, and healthiness in the relationship. So if you're trying to change, then what are the alternatives? What can you do to make your life a little healthier? Well, realize, first of all, that everyone has negative thoughts. And if you have negative thoughts, you can do things to overcome that, but it takes work. If just trying harder to overcome your negative thoughts probably is not going to work so much because a lot of folks, if they could just be logical and just think it out, would be very, very healthy. And that's just difficult to do, to just overcome it. And you get frustrated with trying to keep on pushing yourself in ways that maybe you're not quite ready to do. It's a good beginning. It's a good beginning to have a positive outlook and to want to have better thoughts about yourself. But don't get frustrated if you just can't do it by thought alone. So it takes some time. It takes some process. It takes some therapy. It takes some recovery. It takes some reading about how people do it, how people take care of themselves, about in terms of shame or in terms of getting past their self-esteem issues. It takes that, it takes maybe some direction. That's what therapy is about. Talking to someone, talking to, whether it's a healthy group or an individual, finding ways to change the pattern of your life. People can change their patterns. They can't change who they are. They should not change who they are, but they can change patterns. I think of it as maybe using muscles you haven't used for a while. And those muscles that kind of have atrophied because in your life, in with your parents, in your family of origin, meaning the people who were your role models, you just did things a certain way because that's how they did it. And so your beliefs about yourself are going to come from the reactions you got in your family. And if those reactions were negative, or you learned to do things in ways that made you feel bad about yourself or made you feel like you were an outsider, then you're going to believe that about yourself. If were the only person who struggled with sharing emotions in your family and everybody else kept secrets and didn't want to talk about it, you're going to feel very weird and feel like an outsider. And you're going to start to possibly judge yourself and think that you're strange or that you're different. And that's one of the ways that we have toxic thoughts, because even if we have healthy strivings, our family may not encourage that. And there are alternatives again to being stuck in that mode. And so some of the things I wanted to mention in terms of alternatives were positive alternatives to having toxic thought. And the first one is don't judge. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge the person in the relationship. Don't project your bad feelings onto that person. Don't beat yourself up. I think more someone beats themselves up and they feel bad about themselves, they think, well, I'm feeling so bad about myself, maybe I have to share that in some way. That's number one. Number two is use I statements. Talk about yourself. Talk about your own feelings. Try to be vulnerable. Try to be real. Try to be direct about what you're going through. And that really does make a difference in a relationship. Too often, folks will talk in ways that are focused on the other person. You think you're trying to help them, or you're trying to change them in some way or educate them in some way, but they feel intruded upon, or they feel judged, or they feel shamed, and that doesn't help the relationship. So third choice in terms of alternative toxic thinking is try to remember the big picture. What's the big picture here? The big picture is that you want to be in this relationship, that you care about this person, even if you have low self-esteem, or even if you grew up in a dysfunctional family. You chose someone because it felt right and you want to connect with them. And even though the enmeshment that early on, the romantic love early on, is not there in the same way, I mean, early on, we were all very connected, hopefully, to the person we love, and we want to start a life with them, and we're having fun with them. And that enmeshment goes away after a little while. Children and work and life stressors just come in and make it real difficult sometimes to deal with the big picture, the big picture idea, which is I want to be with that person. I love that person. I picked that person. These minor stresses, even if they may not be minor, these everyday stressors are not all there is. So another choice in terms of positive alternatives to toxic thoughts is try not to bring up the past into the present. Try not to talk about things that have happened before and generalize to things that are going to happen now. And generalizing also is another thing not to do about your partner's behavior. So the always and never choices. He always does this, she never does that. Those are real problematic in a relationship and real toxic. One of the other choices here is look for positive ways to complement yourself and your partner. Think positively about, look for positive um, pieces of their behavior and pieces of your behavior, It's real easy to get bogged down in the negative, to generalize to the negative, to see things as doom and gloom. But there are positive things that are happening all the time. There's lots of information coming into us all the time, and we pick and choose. And if we're thinking toxically, and if our outlook is toxic and unhealthy, then that's what we're going to see. But there's lots of positive things going on. If you can be open and spontaneous is another alternative to toxic thought. Be open to new experiences, be spontaneous, have fun in your life. Not get bogged down in the negative ways that you're seeing or the day-to-day negative things that could happen. And my last positive alternative is repair disagreements quickly. It's too easy for those things to go on and on and on. And I think as you are in a healthier relationship, those disagreements get repaired a lot quicker, and you can start to get off the rigid, competitive choices that you might be making of trying to always be right or trying to always get across that you're right, and you're angry and you're projecting your anger onto the other person. So, and again, if you're projecting your anger onto that other person, you might be having some toxic thoughts about that they're always this way and I can never get through to them and I can never, it's the nevers and the always and the global thoughts that can be very toxic because they're unrealistic. Nothing is always, nothing is never, nothing is impossible. It's just we get stuck in those modes. And those choices become seemingly our only choices when they're not our only choices. So thank you for listening. My name again is Andy Holzman of Family Tree Counseling, 317-457-8668, or aholzman2@comcast.net. Bye.